In room 174 at the Fort Harrison Hotel, Lisa McPherson is isolated for 17 days. She is completing the introspection rundown, an isolation watch, with 24-hour observation.
The step consists of locking a person in a room where they cannot communicate with anyone, no one is to communicate with them, and they're to be kept there until they supposedly come out of their psychotic state.
Lisa McPherson, who is mentally unstable, according to Scientology, is having these people come in and try to force feed her, and she's yelling and screaming at them, she's banging on the wall, she's fighting with them, she's asking them questions, but they are not allowed to respond to her. All they can do is turn around and walk out the room and then write a report to the case supervisor and close the door behind them. And she's not allowed to leave.
These 17 days were the last days of her life. Born in 1959, Lisa became a Scientologist at just age 18. In 1994, she moved from Dallas, Texas to Clearwater, Florida, for her work with AMC Publishing, a company that was mostly staffed and ran by Scientologists. In June 1995, Lisa was placed in her first introspection rundown due to her perceived mental instability. She completed the process and attested to the state of clear by September.
I was walking through the Hubbard Guidance Center. I was walking through that one day and a door kicked open and I heard this loud voice hollering in glee. I went up to one of the Class 12s and I said, "What's happening here?" He says, "Oh, that's Lisa McPherson. She just attested to clear. You've got somebody up in the Hubbard Guidance Center who just attested to clear, who looks to me to be on the verge of psychosis."
On November 18th, 1995, Lisa was involved in a minor car accident. She was unharmed, but paramedics became concerned when she began removing her clothes while saying, "I need help. I need to talk to someone." She would later say that she removed her clothes in order to get counseling.
Lisa in the accident scene was behind our ambulance, and he says, "You're never going to guess what she's doing," speaking of Lisa. And I said, "What?" And he says, "She's taking off her clothes." And it was like a few seconds later, she came walking down the side of our ambulance with not a stitch on. As I went to get her, I said, Lisa, why did you take your clothes off?" And she said, "I wanted people to think I was crazy so then I could get some help."
The paramedics took her to the hospital and agreed, though she was unharmed, she should be kept for observation. After an intervention by her fellow Scientologists, Lisa would refuse psychiatric observation or admission at the hospital and checked herself out against doctors' advice. She said that she wished to receive the religious care and assistance from Scientology that they wanted her to have. We already know that Scientology have a long-standing war with the psychiatry industry, so it makes sense that they would not have wanted her to go for a psychiatric evaluation. She may have been prescribed medication or referred for some other treatment, but had that happened, she might still be here with us today. After checking out of hospital, Lisa was taken to the Fort Harrison Hotel, also known as the Flag Land Base. Here she was put into the care of staffers belonging to the church's Flag Service Organisation, or the FSO. According to Scientology, Lisa was brought there for rest and relaxation. However, sworn statements demonstrate that she was actually there for another introspection rundown. She was taken to room 174 and isolated for 17 days. She was intensely audited and even given tapes of L. Ron Hubbard to listen to during her isolation. She continued to lose touch with reality. It's reported that she began hallucinating that she was L. Ron Hubbard and began self-harming, bruising her fists and feet on the walls and injuring herself. Her nails were cut down to prevent her from scratching herself or the staff. She became very weak and was unable to eat or drink. All through this time, she had 24-hour observation, and those last days of her life are incredibly detailed in these care logs that the staff members had to keep. It's very clear that her deterioration is obvious, and it's shocking that nothing was done sooner. Some of these logs are even missing. Marty Rathbun, who managed the fallout from the case for the church, now admits that he ordered the last 2 days of the log to be destroyed.
Those were the 3 documents or 3 reports that myself, Elliot Abelson, General Counsel for the church, and Lynn Farney, who was a staff member, decided ought to go. And of course I was the senior person there, so I said, lose them. And but we had discussed it, and they had culled them and pulled them out as these being things that we wouldn't want people to see.
He feared that they would incriminate the church.
The only glimpse into Lisa McPherson's 17 days at the Fort Harrison Hotel comes from logs kept by Scientologists who were assigned to keep watch over Lisa. Despite Scientology's efforts to keep them confidential, the courts have made them public. The logs show Lisa's physical and mental state deteriorating over those 17 days.
Rest and relaxation sounds like a wonderful idea, but the records say that 2 days into her stay, she was spitting out food and vomiting. 4 days into her stay, she was ashen-faced and feverish, and then she became violent, striking the attendants, hallucinating, thinking that she's L. Ron Hubbard, being too weak to stand, soiling herself, crying, babbling, breaking things. At that point, isn't it clear that it's not working?
What's not working?
Resting, taking her away from the stage.
No, I don't think that that's clear at all.
Investigators learned that only a few of Lisa's caretakers actually had any medical training. As far as the detectives could tell, nobody at the hotel had been a licensed physician. The police also discovered that during her stay, Lisa had been physically restrained. She had been tied to her bed and given injections of muscle relaxants and other chemicals. The logs of December 4th and 5th are missing, but Lisa's final caretaker, Laura Arunda, described what she saw in that final 48 hours of her life. This information is sourced from Tony Ortega's blog, The Underground Bunker, and I will link the article down below as well. At 5 p.m. on the 5th of December, Laura returned for another shift, and Heather, her other carer, was in the bathroom with Lisa, running the shower whilst Lisa sat in the tub, looking limp and suffering with diarrhea. Laura was shocked by how much worse Lisa looked than just 12 hours earlier. She described her as looking septic, even saying that she looked like she had an infection. Laura went to notify Janice Johnson, the chief medical officer, but Janice did not arrive at room 174 for another 2 hours, arriving at around 7 p.m. The church staff has contacted David Minkoff, a Scientologist medical doctor who prescribed Lisa Valium twice as well as chloral hydrate. They requested for him to prescribe an antibiotic to Lisa because she seemed to have an infection, but Minkoff refused, stating that she should be taken to a hospital and he needed to see her before prescribing anything. They did agree to take her. Dr. Janice Johnson stated that Lisa had been gasping and had laboured breathing whilst en route to the hospital. They passed a total of 4 hospitals on the way to their ultimate destination. They wanted to take her to the hospital that Minkoff worked at, which was 45 minutes away, and the closest hospital was only 6 minutes away. But it was the same hospital that she went to after she got into the car accident, and they feared that she would just be taken in for psychological treatment straight away. Or that they would realise that something had been going on since the last time the doctors saw her. When they finally arrived at Minkoff's hospital 45 minutes north of Clearwater, Lisa exhibited no vital signs. Hospital staff attempted to resuscitate her for 20 minutes before declaring her dead. It has been reported that she likely died before she even got to the hospital. Had they just taken her to the hospital that was 6 minutes away, she might have lived. Scientologists called Lisa's family to tell them that she had died of a blood clot or meningitis whilst she was at the Fort Harrison Hotel for rest and relaxation. A suspicious death investigation happened the next day and an autopsy was performed. The autopsy showed she was suffering from severe dehydration and had likely not had enough water for 5 to 10 days before she actually died. Lisa's family opened a case against the Church of Scientology for her death, and prosecutors levied 2 charges against the Church of Scientology. The first being abuse of a disabled adult, and the second being practicing medicine without a license. 5 years after Lisa's mysterious death, the charges against the church were dropped. The charges lost all weight once the medical examiner, Joan Wood, changed her opinion about her death. She changed it from undetermined to accidental. At first saying it was a blood clot caused by severe dehydration and bed rest, and after Scientology involved themselves in the investigation, she said that she did not know the cause of death. She resigned shortly after. Joan had been a medical examiner for 18 years. She conducted more than 5,600 autopsies, and she testified in hundreds of murder trials. Unfortunately, this case will be the one she is remembered for the most. It is speculated that Scientology influenced her to change her report. The church had spent around $30 million dealing with this case. They eventually settled for an undisclosed amount with the family. Lisa's death is devastating, and pickets are actually held outside the church on the anniversary of death because many people feel that justice was not served. Nobody actually got charged for what happened to her. Scientology took this opportunity to create a new clause which would state that they would not be responsible for treating medical conditions, which would stop anyone suing them for neglect in the future.